Well, as promised, I am trying to speak to every single candidate for the Board of Education election. The early voting started today, but the actual election is May 14th. So if you haven't made up your mind yet or done your research, hopefully this helps. I am excited to welcome Navian Scarlett to the program, and you are running for Board of Education.
Yes.
Awesome. What prompted you? Have you run for any other office before?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Was there anything in particular that prompted this run for you this time?
I think the Board of Education is really close to my heart, really, because I grew up in Frederick and I went through all the school levels of Frederick County Public Schools up until high school. I graduated from Frederick High School in 2019. So a lot of the issues that I saw were being brought up with the seats being open, and a lot of the things I felt like I could really give my input and really be able to make a positive impact as a board member.
That is phenomenal. Okay. So, and I don't mean to have ageism leak in here, but I think it's phenomenal as a younger person that you have seen or had have seen the issues just coming through the school system recently, and you want to make a change. That's really great.
Yeah, I did go to one of the meetings, and going to one of the board meetings was really insightful. Before I fully made the decision to commit to running, it really solidified my decision because a lot of the things that the board members discussed, as far as visiting the schools and stuff like that, it was very flowery, pretty much, because the things that I experienced, like FCPS has their little videos about students saying great things and like their visit and everything, but I'm like, they're not there every day. It's like when the
Right.
principal visits the teacher, right? Everyone is good that day, but
Yeah.
I was just knowing that these board members were unaware, even those that had kids. I mean, your kids don't always tell you everything, so knowing that, keeping that in mind, knowing that I had this student's perspective that we don't have on the board, really it inspired me to really push for running for office.
Well, look, I mean, I think it is exciting, and you're exactly right. Your perspective is fresh. It's not, obviously when they do videos, and a lot of the board members when they go to visit the schools, everyone's going to put on their best face, right? They're painting the best picture. Everything's in the best light, and that's not always reality. And it's frustrating for parents who are whose children are impacted by negative things to constantly see the, I guess, non admission that there are issues that need to be addressed. And I think a lot of parents that go to the board meetings feel dismissed and not heard. And I think it's really great that you're going to bring a fresh, young perspective to the board. That's very exciting, actually. I'm very excited for you. Okay, I am going to ask a few questions of the over 500 comments we received when we posted that we were going to speak to some of you guys of some of the major themes of issues that parents are currently dealing with. One of the big ones was school overcrowding. Do you have some thoughts about how to address where some schools have 10 or 12 portables, or it's, class sizes are humongous. And I know that that's kind of a district issue and it's a teacher issue, but if you can speak to school overcrowding, that would be great.
Well, what I'll first start off saying is I was in a portable around fifth grade. But in my experience, I don't think portables are really a great way to even teach students to even facilitate learning. It's just so separate from the school that you really feel, and like also, excuse me, there's just so many things that can happen in a portable, and just the walk to the portable really separates students so much from the school that it feels like a whole a separate world pretty much. So I don't even really believe that as a long-term solution. A short-term solution for sure, but I noticed with overcrowding, we've been essentially adding more portables to the school to accommodate overcrowding. And I think our solution will be that not to redistrict people. I think that we can find, I mean, a lot of these issues have to do with the budget. So once we're able to really tackle and kind of start solving the issues with short staffing, retaining staff, we can be able to add additional staff, and that could help us actually kind of bring down the making classes even smaller if
Yeah.
we're able to do that. And I think that it's something that can be done. We do have the blueprint. We can implement the blueprint, but we have to do it in the right way with the right mindset, and definitely not thinking that it's going to be a tomorrow solution, that it's going to take some time. But I think with the right methods and tactics, as I've said before, is I really think that we can advertise education, and we can do essentially the same thing that they did with STEM when they were concerned about that career path and that career. Like, just not a lot of people were signing up for STEM. Now when I open up my phone, any social media platform, you see it right there. You see an advertisement about competitive wages, about the benefits of being part of STEM, about how many people are needed for STEM. So it's an open job market. You're pretty much guaranteed a job in this field, and also offering sometimes a full scholarship to do STEM. So we can do the same things with education. I definitely believe we can. And I think a lot of people, I also have heard so much about the wage gap and so much negative about being in the education field and learning about why people are leaving the education field, that we really need to push. These are benefits, and even these are benefits that are incoming with like the wage increase as part of the blueprint and other benefits that we're giving our teachers. I think that's something that would definitely help us to get people to join the workforce, but it's also something that would help people stay in the workforce because they know a change is coming. And I think it would be a very effective way. I know that when I went to the meeting about the budget, they did report that we are outsourcing a lot. And in comparison, our teachers that essentially come from our own community, in comparison to outsourced teachers and staff are costing 2 times more than someone from our community. So given our budget and the fact that it hasn't necessarily grown with our growing community of Frederick County for several years, we are essentially losing money to this outsourcing, which is, it's unavoidable because of our short staffing, right? But if we're able to get more people to stay and more people to join in on the education field, then we can slowly but surely get rid of that outsourcing. And even before we even start with advocating for more in the budget, we would essentially have that extra money that we were using for outsourcing, and that could fund all the programs like special education, staff to help with workload, wages, and also reducing that class size. I think that's a plan that we could definitely implement.
So when you say outsourcing, what do you mean by that? I'm not sure I'm familiar with what outsourcing we're doing. Are they bringing in like substitutes? Is that what you're talking about, or what is that?
So some of our teachers and staff are contracted.
Ah.
And so that's what's costing the additional funds.
So they're making more because they're not, so they're not employees is what you're saying?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Do you know what percentage of teachers are contracted?
I don't recall what percentage, but I know they had it written out. I know a lot of it had to do with more certain fields in special education, like I think it was speech pathology is like mainly, like no one within our community is being able to fulfill that position. So certain things like that are more specific are definitely like at least 90% or 100% outsourced, just because people aren't experienced with that particular degree, and that field is not helping.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm wondering if we need better people to negotiate those contracts, or, trying to, again, I think that, so you are talking about in order to attract more teachers. Right now, I believe there's about a $25 million shortfall in the budget, so things have to be cut. Where do you feel the cuts should happen? If not, because right away it seems to go to teacher salaries, teacher benefits, and then it creates this whole issue with the teachers union. So where would you suggest the cuts in the budget should come in order to kind of get that balanced?
I mean, it really depends on what. I didn't get to look at all of the things that were put in the budget. I did see what are the main things that were cut, but I mean, referencing another board meeting where there was a particular school that was pretty well funded in their sports department, but they were asking for pretty extensive funding that I don't even know if we had available to add to their sports department. So like things like that, where it's a school that doesn't necessarily need new equipment. Not to say that schools who've had equipment for like 20 years don't need an upgrade, but this was definitely a school where they would survive for a few years without this update to or addition to their equipment. I think those kinds of things is definitely the first thing we should look at is, and I believe it was approved. I don't remember which school it was that was asking for it, but I did see the public commenter that went in and pretty much presented their case to the board members, and I believe it was approved. But I mean, things like that, I think is the first thing we should look at. What can wait? Not that it's not necessary, but what can wait for a while so that we are not having this huge deduction from teachers, the people who literally make our school operate, which is very
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned special education, obviously coming out of the investigation with the DOJ. What are your recommendations for assuring parents that, certainly nothing like that will happen again or fix the special education system in Frederick County?
Well, something I've always thought of from when I was a student and the things I've experienced is that we really should have like some form of a hotline or report system that's anonymous for students. As I said, as a student, I've seen the horrors. I've seen anything you can think of that could go wrong in a school. I've witnessed it. Anything that can go wrong with policy, I've witnessed it. Any mistreatment of students, verbal, unprofessional behavior towards students that's being said to students and done to students, I've either experienced it or I've witnessed it myself. So coming from that, I for a long time I always thought there has to be a way for us to have a report system. My thought first started with like, is there a way for us to get like an insider in the classroom? That's how serious it is.
Yeah.
I was thinking we need an insider in the classroom that is the reporter that will
Yeah.
like watch things happen and report it. But other than that, I think we could have a hotline or something like that where you can always 24/7 anonymously report an incident that happened, whether it's like something like that you speak or like type it up or something and submit it written. I think that would be helpful for many, not just the special education, but I think that, the students in this, our special education students know what was done. Um, and you know that because they are being offered therapy. Like they definitely know that something was done and they are affected by it. I think there should be a report system for them in particular in comparison to the report that the staff are putting, which they said was one of the changes was that the staff will report every restraint and things like that. But they should actually have the student also report when were you restrained, and then they look at the records and see if they match up. Is the staff report showing less than what the student is saying? That I think pretty much solves most of that problem of making sure we have accurate reporting. And I mean, I haven't heard anything about how we're ensuring that the staff are actually reporting it. We're just saying that that's part of the protocol they should follow. But I mean, to be fair, part of the protocol they should follow is utilizing that power of restraint responsibly. And they did
Yeah.
not exhibit that responsibility. So I think we need to have a certain way of accounting for accountability as well.
Yeah. Okay. The there are many parents who are concerned about how the school system is handling drugs on campus. And what are your thoughts on the things that the board may be able to do to work with administrators on kids who are repeat offenders? And, right now there are many kids who won't even go into any restrooms during the school day because it's so bad.
I think that I mean, we really need to change the focus in the schools because the whole point is that as a student, what I witnessed is I pulled up the policies. I read the policies, and that's not to say that they're bad policies. Some of them are, right on point policies, but they're just on paper. That's what I'm saying. It's just done on paper. So we need to find a way to actually make sure that we're accountable for actually exercising those policies in the school because it's on paper of what we should be doing, but it's just not being done. And I think the same can be done. Could there be changes for review on our current policies? Absolutely, there could. But we still need to, that's not going to be enough. We still need to ensure that it's actually being exercised in the schools. I mean, the focus is, you know, um, teachers are more focused on which student is wearing a hat in school and which student is violating dress code when there's like five kids in a bathroom. So they're chasing down this one kid that's, maybe violating dress code, and there's five students in the bathroom, right there that's doing drugs in the bathroom. So I think we need to change our focus of like priority of what, as far as disciplining students and make sure that we are actually checking in on what's going on, who's in the bathroom, and I think also too it has to do with teachers checking in with students. The relationship between a teacher and a student is absolutely powerful, and it is absolutely necessary to combating this drug problem. It's not just about like this one video once a year about why you should do drugs. It's a continuous conversation. What's going on? Why did you start doing drugs? What's going on? And some people do take drugs because of mental health problems. So let's address that. How can the schools offer better mental health services so they're not resorting to something dangerous like utilizing drugs? There's so many things that can happen in someone's life that can lead them to that. And I think just that communication, building that relationship with someone else that you feel like can understand you, can help our students to understand what they're doing. And that's not to say they don't know it's wrong, but to maybe get them to go on another path. It's something we've seen a lot with students who are involved in sports. Their coaches become their mentors all the time. I think our teachers can do that as well and really become mentors for these students and really put them on the right path.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Well, and kind of this leads to the next question, or I guess if there's an issue that some parents have. So there are some school systems and states that utilize a voucher system or offer school choice, where if a parent wants to take the budgeted money for the student and take it to whichever school they want, that is one way for the free market, I guess, to decide, where the money goes, rather than the schools automatically getting the funding for the students who are registered. How do you feel about school choice and then some sort of voucher program?
Well, I think that as it stands right now, our education system in regards to proficiency is, the way where we're at, we have no right to really tell them that they can't look for other options. I think also with the fact that our schools are not facilitating certain policies, like bullying policies, that puts a parent well within their right to pull their kid out of public school. And I understand why parents have that perspective that public school is not the right environment for their child. I've been a victim of ineffective bullying policy and ineffective action. You're literally left on your own. You're left on your own. You can send as many emails, you can make as many phone calls, you can show up to the school. It doesn't matter who's involved. You're left on your own when it comes to bullying, and the victim is made to feel be penalized instead of the person that is bullying you. That's what is going on in our schools. So as things stand right now, as parents well within their right to say, yeah, maybe they can't commit to homeschooling their child, but they're going to look for other options that is safe and right for their child's education. Our proficiency is at a very low. It's very
Yeah.
low. It is not at all where we should be at. And I know
Yeah.
this is a national crisis, but there is no excuse for anyone to be graduating without the ability to read or do basic math. We're setting them up for failure because uh, the applications now, all of them have math problems. All of them have math problems, and if you can't read, I mean, hopefully you get to that part of the application, right?
Yeah.
And but all of them have at least basic math. I've done one that had division and multiplication, and these are not degree jobs.
Right.
They're really checking on the education even for entry level jobs. So I mean, even kids from you starting work from 16. I mean, depending on how you do with reading proficiency and math at that time, you just may not get the job because you don't meet the standards for proficiency that they're looking for. They're really cracking down because our education system is so bad, and because companies have been hurt by this lack of proficiency. And it's not the fault of any student. It is not the fault of any student. It's the fault of our education system not doing its job. And there's no excuse for that. But honestly, the way things stand, it seems to have just been going downhill for years and years and years, and nothing changing in regards to proficiency. So until we actually start fighting for better proficiency, better curriculum, more involvement from teachers who know what they're doing, they went to school for it, they got a degree in it, they know what they're doing, and really getting them more involved in what's going to be most effective for our children to learn. What's going to help our children like learning? What's going to help them be more inquisitive? Because jobs now, no matter what degree you get, they're looking for more innovation and creativity to solve problems. That's
Yeah.
what they're looking for now. So how can we teach them to do that independently? That's what you're teaching kids to do, is independently research something they don't know, independently try and solve a problem. You're teaching them to want to seek education. They want to learn about these things. They want to figure out how something works. Those are the skills that we're giving them for their life that they need to have, and the school is just not fulfilling that. Sure, there's a few students that and for me, it was my upbringing of my mom starting to educate me and my brother early, that she instilled in us a love for education, a love for learning. I don't think I'm ever not going to be in school learning about something, honestly. I will
Yeah.
always be in school. So if we can do that, then we can talk about whether the school choice is an option. But
Yeah.
until we get there, I don't think anyone has a right to say no to it. Absolutely.
Yeah. What do you feel? A lot of parents, and I agree. I think the last survey was that only 70% of Frederick County's high school seniors were career or college ready upon graduation. So a 30% failure rate is, I think, a huge number. And like you're saying, they can't read, they're not proficient, they're not ready for a career, they can't continue their education. That is, one thing. And then they're not learning basic life skills like how to read a rental agreement, how to balance a checkbook, or what even a checkbook is, or, master any sort of financial literacy or anything like that. How do you feel about graduating from high school yet not really being taught any of those basic life skills?
Well, here's what I'll start with is that a lot of people, along with all of those things you said, a lot of people are asking about the focus of whether the focus should be college readiness or life readiness. I believe the schools should focus on life readiness because there are people, even myself, who are in situations that you cannot just graduate high school and jump into college. And it just may be a fact of finances. It may be a fact of not being ready to just jump into that kind of expenditure. So we should make sure that they're able to work, or even work to save money, or work to do college online. I think preparing people for life is way more important. Everyone falls on hard times. And the one way you need to get through those hard times is the ability to find a job and work hard. If we're not teaching them to have those skills that they need to get the job and to work hard to get to where they want, whether they want to just be in a workforce or whether they want to be in college. A lot of people are disregarding the fact that, I know some people are very content with their life in the workforce. They're very content working their way up in retail and doing that for 20, 30 years, and then retiring whenever they're ready. There are people that are very comfortable with that. They just don't want to pursue a degree, and that's absolutely fine. In addition to that, what I'm learning, especially from high school graduates that I'm still in connection with, there is a gap with, even if you have a degree, which a lot of jobs do require a degree now, they're still looking for work experience. So if the student hadn't worked when they were younger, like from 16, or had any summer jobs or anything, if they had no work experience at all, went straight into college and is now looking for a job, now jobs are really considering your work experience. And even with that degree, no matter how well you did, you can probably be 4.0 GPA. They want to know that you're able to work with people.
Yeah.
So we're also failing our college readiness, right? Because now they're not really being considered versus an applicant who had done those summer jobs or had worked for a little while. So it's something to consider that we focus on survival skills and
Yeah.
lifestyle skills.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Another question that parents asked was regarding the books that are available in the libraries at the schools. Some parents were concerned about some of the materials, and how do you feel like that should be handled if there is a book that is, considered offensive or things like that?
I think we need to go back to step one and reevaluate how we are even passing or denying books, that process of what books are allowed in the schools and which ones aren't. Because at one of the forums I did, I was shown a book that was allowed to be in the school. And what I'll say is, what I did say was, I don't know how this got passed. I don't know how this got approved to be in the school. And that's why we're having this kind of era right now where a lot of schools across the country are like reevaluating, and it feels like they're getting rid of books. But we need to evaluate how they were approved, what the process was, what the thought was, what the notion was that this was an appropriate book. And we really need to strengthen that, because if we strengthen that, then that prevents it from being in the school, and we won't have to remove as many books because we're doing our job. We're making sure that it's not getting inappropriate material for certain age groups. Just shouldn't be in the hands of those age groups if it's inappropriate. And some things, sure, some sensitive material does have to do with education, for sure. But I think that certain things that are being discussed as far as education, I think that with technology, some of our students are able to find that somewhere else, is what I'll say. Um, Honestly, some of the things that I've seen is literally pornographic material. And I understand education about the body and growing up and things to that nature, but also students have access to things like that. So
Yeah.
unless it has to do with something like, I would say anything that has to do with like reproduction and the science of it and knowing your body. I've met so many students, high school and college, who knew nothing about being a woman and having a period and what they need to survive that or get through that, or and all of those things, just because of the culture at home that is just was not discussed. Things like that, yes, the school should be, making sure that we're essentially protecting these students from like a culture shock, a
Yeah.
reality check of this weird thing that has happened, and no one even told them, no one really informed them or prepared them for it. Um, but I think for other things, I will say I was actually in class in middle school science class, when a student behind me was actually watching adult films on his Chromebook,
Oh
and
boy.
he accidentally turned the volume on. So for certain things, they don't need to have in the library because we've got access to it. They're
True.
looking at it. But
Yeah.
other things that are essential for survival, yeah, let's make sure it might be sensitive, but let's make sure that we're preparing people for life and not traumatizing them.
Yeah, yeah. Um, there was another kind of repeated question regarding policy 433. Have you read over this policy, and what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are that I support that policy. I think I've heard all the arguments you can think of. I've heard about the fact that it's a mental health issue, and that instead of being transgender, that these students may just be bi or gay. And what that tells me is, because that's a large sentiment of the opposition, what that tells me is that there is currently a community of um, discrimination against the transgender community. Because essentially, by saying that, you're saying being bi or gay is more socially acceptable than being transgender. All of that should be acceptable. There should not be tiers. And what my first thing that came to mind is the civil rights movement. How long have we had this colorism of lighter skin being better than darker skin? They're saying being gay or bi is more socially acceptable than being transgender, and that we shouldn't facilitate that. In addition, if we're considering it a mental issue, which I know that dysphoria is a actual mental health issue, I will acknowledge that. But it's not the school's job to call a parent, and essentially what they would be doing is notifying a parent that they think their child has a mental disorder when they are not qualified. They're basing it just on one symptom, which would be that they're identifying by something else. Everyone knows that for any diagnosis you have, there's a checklist of things that need to be checked off. So they're essentially diagnosing the child based off of one symptom, and basically taking a role of a mental health professional to tell the parent that their child has this mental health disorder. I do not think that the school has a responsibility to do that, or the professional degrees or certification to do that either. So I would not support it in that sense either. I think that we should be happy that students feel safe enough to identify authentically in schools, because it is a scary thing. There are people that are not going to be accepting it. There are going to be people that are going to bully you for it and discriminate against you for it, but they're doing it anyways. And we should be proud that we have students who feel safe enough to identify authentically among their peers. That's one of the things I will say. And we should really just not encroach on this discrimination and this notion of, because we're so uncomfortable with that aspect essentially of the community, that we should prevent anyone from pursuing how they feel. Life is an experience. Let them live it. Let them
Hmm.
experience it. It's part of it, and I don't think anyone should um, be in charge of, pretty much altering anyone's life of what their decisions are. Maybe those decisions will change later. But I mean, people change religions all the time, also. So let's, it's ideology. It's how you feel. It's what you believe in. I think that's, we shouldn't encroach on someone's personal beliefs, someone's core values, essentially, because then we're turning them into what we want them to be, what we think society wants them to be. And some people see it as protecting their children, and I understand that, but um, you're hurting them because they feel like they cannot be themselves, and then they're hurting themselves because then they're so concerned about this thing that everyone's telling them they're not supposed to be or not supposed to do, rather than on their assignment. I mean, no one should be, in fear about who they are or figuring out who they are, instead of learning. And that's what this is becoming. That's I've had friends who have explained this predicament to me, and because of that experience and being part of their journey and that lived experience, I cannot say that I'm against it. I said I'm for it wholeheartedly. In regards to sports, which is part of the policy, is whether transgender males who transition to females should play on girls' sports. It's a form of sexism because no one's talking about the females who transition to males playing on male sports teams, which I think, with the argument they're giving, would have the same effects. They're saying that because of genetics, that there would be more risk of injury and things like that. I played soccer for many years, from the first year you could start as a child up until high school. And because I love soccer so much, I played on co-ed teams. And from a young age, I played against grown men in like pickup games at the park. I honestly, my view on sports is that, you have enough skill, it doesn't matter. Which is what I learned by playing against people who are like 3 times my size, right? Is that if I had enough skill, it didn't matter. I did not get any extensive injuries. I was not concerned about getting hurt because of the size difference. You just play the game. And, it becomes part of being an athlete, of being the best, regardless. Being the best at which we do, regardless, and fighting for that and training for that. It's that athletic mentality of like, when everyone else is sleeping, I'm working. And I think that um, because I've had no experience with what people are worried about, I do not think there's any reason to deny them, honestly. And that's my stance on that. And I think that if we are going to continue to facilitate this notion of like, um, and of saying that because they're playing on the girls' team, I don't want this to also facilitate a certain notion that, oh, that person won because they were male before they transitioned. We shouldn't be teaching our kids to not essentially to be sore losers. Let's not encourage them to seek out the differences in other people as to why they didn't get something or why they're facing adversity. Sports is a life lesson. So if we're teaching them that certain things that they didn't get is because of the other person, it's not because of me, it's because of them. We're also teaching them not the right way to live and not to accept losses, which is what you learn as an athlete, is to accept losses, see how you can do better, and work to improve. And I think that, with these sports, that's all people can do. And I fully support um, that decision to allow them to play whichever sport they're with.
Okay. Interesting. I mean, do you feel like the some of the parents' comments were also regarding the fact that children can decide whatever name that they want to be called without parental knowledge or consent? Do you feel like that's okay?
Without the gender being involved, I've witnessed students who've gone by a completely different name than their legal name. And that's solely just because they didn't like their name. They didn't tell their parents they hated their name, but I mean, I've known people who might have been like Paul and they go by Richard or something, like something completely different from what their name is. So on
Yeah.
paper, the substitute teacher has this name and they're like, no, I go by this completely other name.
Yeah.
I've seen
I
that.
think what the parents were referring to is an actual change in the school system's database of a child's name. So they were receiving paperwork at their home addressed to a name that they weren't aware that their child was using. So,
I mean um that would bring up a whole. I mean, my only issue with the notification of parents, other than what I mentioned, is safety for the students. If they're in a household that's not acceptable, then I would be concerned about their safety and potentially a student becoming, homeless or just abandoned by the family because of their decision of how they choose to live. A lot of people are saying that it's not common enough to care, but even if the percentage is 1%, that's still too many. That's still too many lives affected, and trauma that will be caused, possibly dropping out of school because of this whole thing that happens to them. I think that's still too many to just disregard potential issues at home that could put them at risk. So that's why I have my stance is, if there's a way for us to protect our students, sure. But if we don't have a way for that right now, then safety is my priority.
Yes, okay. One of the questions a parent raised was the ability for students and even teachers to get involved in political protests on school grounds during school hours. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I will take the stance actually of discussing. I know there were gun violence protests when I don't remember, I think I was a junior in high school at that time. There was a protest, and I had quite a few teachers who were against it and were threatening, like, penalties, detention if you went to this protest. But um, I'm wondering, it is a right to do that, and it's the most powerful right we have as Americans. And I think that we should teach our children that you have a say. I mean, with gun violence, some of the students that are protesting aren't even at the age of voting age. But if adults are out here making the choice of who we're voting for and they are not representing them, and they're essentially putting their lives at risk by not addressing the gun violence issue, which, school shootings are really not that uncommon anymore, then you have a right to have your say. You have a right for essentially them to see you and see your complaint and see why they're making an error in not protecting every life that they are essentially representing. And I don't believe that school should really be involved in telling anyone not to do that because, you know, to me, it feels like this impression of like we're teaching people not to say no to something that's wrong. We're teaching them like, oh, you can disagree with that, but certain steps and certain um, things that you have the right to do and be an activist and advocate for this and and represent why you're in opposition and make your voice be heard. You shouldn't do that. I don't believe that they should do that because in government you learn about how all that stuff worked out, right? You learn about major protests that made a legislative change for the better. So then for them to turn around and say that you shouldn't do that, I think is completely wrong. I was at Frederick High School in 2015 for back to school night when there was a shooting at the basketball game going on at the same night. Since then, I've been an activist for gun violence. I've been an activist really for anything that I see has been wrong. And it's a very powerful position to be in, to let your voice be heard, to see that, you're not the only one that understands that there is a crisis in these areas of our society. And, I've done all of the work, even legislatively, the phone calls, the letter writing, all of that, meeting legislators and having them tell me that my lived experience with gun violence is not enough for them to make a change and make sure other people are not killed by gun violence. I've dealt with that and kept that adversity. So let's not, our uncomfortability with activism and protesting infringe on the next generation of leaders that can make a change for issues that no one sees a hope for, that no one sees changing anytime soon or even ever. That's what's going to end up happening. Is allow them, as long as they're peaceful, allow them to protest and be heard on issues that essentially a lot of our older generation have given up trying to be heard on.
Excellent. Well, I think that sums up the questions that parents had wanted me to ask. So I am going to give you the floor, so to speak, and I would love for you to let people know why they should vote for you on the 14th during the election.
Well, I'll say that what I've noticed is that a lot of the forums and interviews I've had running for the Board of Education has been about um, will you collaborate with the other board members? Will you collaborate? And I believe, yes, it's important to be able to work with others, but I think with the issues we're talking about now and the fact that these are issues that people are so concerned about because they have not seen a change in. I think we shouldn't be looking for collaboration. We should be looking for someone who's willing to go in and fight. Any legislator, anyone who's been in a particular office that has gotten things done, that has made this changed or got this legislation passed, they had to fight for it. It doesn't matter how collaborative or compromising you are with other people, there is a fight going on behind the scenes. We need to elect people who are going to fight for you, the community, the parents, the students. Okay, and make sure that you're not going to back down. That this has to be done, and that's the same thing we need to do with our budget too. Our Frederick County is growing at a rapid pace, and we have not seen a growth in our budget from the government. It's not about asking nicely. It's not about walking on eggshells and I don't want to rub them the wrong way. It's about we need this to operate effectively. We need this to educate effectively. We demand that this is done because it needs to be done. And that's for a lot of the issues that we have going on with bullying. We need people in our schools to be actually holding the bullies accountable, not making the victim feel like they are the problem. Um, and that's what I've experienced, and one of the new things that I've heard as of lately with bullying is that the victim is being made to leave the school and go to another school, and there's no offer of transportation help or anything like that. They're just, you know, you're being bullied, we're removing you instead of the person that's probably going to go around and bully someone else, even if you're not there. So this is a fight, because things haven't been done. It is a fight to get these things done. All these issues that all these parents are concerned about. I am going in to fight for these things. I'm going in to fight for my voters. I'm going in to fight for my community because I've seen it, I've experienced it. Certain things I will never forget for the rest of my life. And that's why I'm running for the board because I have seen the horrors of public school and I don't want it to continue. I don't want to go in and be so compromising that I don't, say that this is not a position that needs to be compromised. This is something that just needs to get done. And we just need more of that mentality that we just need these things to be done. And it's not about an argument and it's not about, whatever group you want to support or whatever group, endorsed you or whatever it is that is encouraging you not to do this. It's about working for the people who put us in office. It's not just about the education system in the school. It's also about the people who put us in office and put their trust in us to do what is in their best interest. And we have not seen that. So what I'll say to all the voters is take a really hard look at all of our candidates and think about who you think is going to fight for you when they're in office. Because what you don't want is someone who's not fighting for you and compromising to the extent that they lose their path or they lose their vigor for why they were running to make these changes. And it's not to say that it's going to be easy. It's going to be very hard. But for the past 7 years, I've been fighting against gun violence. For the past 7 years, I've had people tell me no to my story of trauma. For the past 7 years, I've gone back again and again and again. Despite how many no's I get, I keep coming back. And I'm bringing that level of activism and that level of passion to the board to make sure our students are educated, to make sure they're in a safe environment, to make sure we have inclusivity and diversity in our schools, to make sure that we have enough budget to operate. Getting by is not going to do it, and it hasn't been doing it for a very long time. I'm going in to make sure all the concerns that you bring to the board is addressed, not just sitting around and sitting in office and losing hope. That's what I see a lot of is that, even other candidates telling me, oh, that ship has sailed, or like, oh, that's, that's nice and everything. Good luck with that. There is no good luck with that. We need these things to be done so that we have a proper education system and we are setting up our students for success and not failure in life and in college readiness. That is what I'm doing when I go into the board is I'm going in to fight for my community, fight for my voters, and listen to what I'm listening to what they are saying and making sure that their voice is heard as a board member. Every vote I would make as a board member will have everyone's voice in account. Everyone's parent, teacher, student, everyone's voice, because we cannot make a vote based on just one side. That's not how it works. And that's where the collaboration comes in, right? Making sure it goes along with this part and this part. There's multiple parts to it. That's what
Yeah.
we need on the board is someone who will be fighting for what is right and not just any kind of separate agendas or personal agendas. That's why I'm going in the board, fighting for you.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for the time today. We wish you the best of luck. We know you're going to do great things for Frederick. And yeah, we look forward to seeing what happens on May 14th.
Yeah.
Awesome. That was good. Thank you.
Thank you.